I had no idea how much of a problem this was. Welcome, ghoul friends, to another dip into the spooky internet pool. My name is Tonya, and I am your host. Today, we are investigating illegal fortune telling decks. This could be tarot decks, oracle decks, Lenormand decks, basically any cartomancy system. For those of you who don't know, cartomancy is fortune telling by cards. So we typically think tarot when we approach this sort of thing. But if I were to say tarot decks, it would feel a little not completely accurate. So instead, I'm going to say illegal cartomancy decks. So, what is this? What is illegal decks? Tarot decks, illegal oracle decks, illegal cartomancy decks. What is this? Basically, if a deck does well and is popular, there are companies who will rip it off. They will completely reprint the art at a lower quality, usually smaller size, with less information, possibly missing the entire book information, all to sell at a much cheaper price. Right? Who thought this was a problem? I didn't, and I've been in the witch world for professionally over 10 years, hobby-wise about 20 years, and I didn't know this was a thing until the Buffy tarot deck. Now, for my birthday, two of my friends, Evan and Tara, they actually run 22 Sound, a record store in Louisiana. So if you're in the area, check it out. But for my birthday, they were very, very sweet and they bought me this Buffy tarot deck. We are friends through Buffy, which let me tell you, as an adult, meeting other adult friends through a fandom is like the best thing in the world. And they were super sweet to do that. Now, the Buffy deck had just come out and it took the Buffy internet fandom by storm. Everyone I saw in the groups were buying decks and everyone was having such a wonderful time talking about the art, talking about certain cards, and you can tell they were just having the time of their life. However, I started to see posts of people saying that, hey, my deck didn't come with a booklet. Or, hey, my deck just looks a little different than the rest of yours. Or, is it supposed to be this size? Basically, a lot of people were sharing that they ordered the deck, but it didn't seem quite right. And I saw quite a few people commenting on this post, just being like, hey, the correct deck should look like this. It should come in this sort of box and it should come with a booklet. So, as an example, the Buffy comes into from a box like this. There is a booklet and you have the cards. Now, there were people who weren't getting decks like this, and it really piqued my interest of, well, the publisher only made this type. So, where's the problem? And then I noticed a friend of mine on Facebook, Laura Tempest Zakoff, posted about the same problem. Only for her, she is the artist and the author of an oracle deck. And she shared the same problem of illegal ripoffs of her deck. And this just blew my mind. And the fact I was seeing both of these kind of occurring at once, what is it, availability heuristic, it suddenly felt like it was everywhere. And I was like, what is happening? What is this? Why would someone do this? And what's going on? And so I really decided I wanted to explore this. And unfortunately, I discovered that this is a problem that can permeate even legitimate, at least what you think are legitimate sellers. Somebody can purchase an illegal deck and then put it for sale under the SKU of the legal deck. So you might pay full price for an expensive deck. Again, like the Buffy one. This one costs $36.99. You could pay $36.99 and get such a more inferior product. So let's kind of investigate this. Now, I am having a little bit of a moral conundrum when doing this video. On one hand, I want to investigate it completely. I want to go through the experience as a buyer. On the other hand, I don't want to contribute to the problem. So, what I did was I went ahead and I knowingly ugh, purchased a deck that had a very high likelihood of being a knockoff. And I did it for you guys. Please don't judge me. But it's for the video. It's to spread knowledge. I'm so sorry. So let's check it out. First, I went to what is considered a cheaper online marketplace and I searched the Buffy deck. Again, I knew this was one people were having this experience with. And sure enough, I found it. I went ahead and purchased it. It is a lot cheaper than the ones from Barnes and Noble. And like we talked about when we talked about finding psychics online, price comes into account. If it is unbelievably cheap, there is a reason, right? You are setting yourself up to be scammed. And when I saw the price of this Buffy deck in this cheaper marketplace, I knew I was setting myself up to be scammed. Right? But hopefully it's for the good of a video where people can learn and see how to avoid this type of thing. So now all I have to do is wait. So the deck came in, and yeah, immediately it is absolutely wild to see the difference between my authentic Buffy deck and my non authentic deck. One, my non authentic deck is about half the size, both in width and height and length. Next, it doesn't have the booklet, even though it says it does. On the back of the non authentic deck, it says includes a fully illustrated guidebook. And it does not because they can't afford to print it because, well, they can't afford it. It's too expensive to print. And I'm going to give you a little secret as someone in the industry. Artists and authors and publishers do not make a lot of money from books and decks. These things are very expensive to produce. It is a labor of love. People who are in it are not in it for the money. Okay. So they can't afford to print the guidebook, period. And of course, the cardstock is inferior, and the card printing is definitely different than the authentic version. So, can you imagine? Now, here's the thing. I went on to a cheaper marketplace and purchased something that was much cheaper. Like I said, so if you're buying something that seems way good to be true for the price, you kind of know you're setting yourself up to be scammed. Now, unfortunately, what can also happen is you have someone who has no idea that they are buying an inferior product or are being set up to be scammed. You may have a buyer who goes on Amazon or eBay and they find this and they pay $36.99, but then they receive this. So, how can that happen? Well, there are sellers who will illegally buy a bunch of these and sell them under the SKU of this, and then send it via Amazon, send it via eBay, or other independent marketplaces, right? Now, why is this a problem? Well, like I said, artists, authors, publishers, this is not an industry that makes a lot of money. And it is hard enough for people to get by on just publishing things authentically and correctly. And now having to worry about this is totally unfair. I barely know any writers who make a living off of writing. It doesn't matter how well known they are, how successful they are. It doesn't matter how good they are. It is near impossible. So why would you want to contribute to hurting people who are barely getting paid for their art as is? Not only that, but it could hurt artists and authors in the future. If people are buying these instead of these, that could mess with the numbers. That could tell a publisher that, hey, this author, this artist didn't hit the numbers we hoped they would make. They didn't hit the numbers to break even. We can't afford to publish with them again. So every single time one of these sells instead of one of these, you're contributing to the author and artist struggling to find work in the future. And finally, you have these companies who are making these, making money, and sometimes full price, making a lot of money off of an inferior product. At the end of the day, it's not the same product. You're getting thinner cards, worsely printed artwork, smaller cards. You're just getting a cheaper thing that you're paying sometimes full price for. And that companies are profiting off of this. Companies that did not put in the work, companies that didn't put in the labor, the artistic, the love, the spiritualism. And speaking of spiritualism, for those of us who use cards for spirituality, whether it's tarot or Lenormand or Oracle, there are a lot of people who use their cards as a spiritual medium. My big question to you is, do you really want to insert this sort of energy into your spiritual practice? And that's another question we have to weigh in when it comes to this. Now, don't just take it from me, who has never suffered from the consequences of this sort of thing. Let's talk to someone who has experienced this firsthand. Laura Tempest-Jakoff, she, they, is a professional artist, author, performer, and modern traditional witch based in New England. Laura is the author of several best-selling Llewellyn books, including Weave the Liminal, Sigil Witchery, Visual Alchemy, and Anatomy of a Witch, as well as the artist and author of the Anatomy of a Witch Oracle and the Liminal Spirits Oracle. So let's welcome her ghoul friends to talk about this issue. So, how did you find out your deck was being illegally copied?
So I was on YouTube, just looking through various videos, and YouTube served me up an ad that said you can buy the Anatomy of a Witch deck for $7.99. I was like, that doesn't sound right. And so I was like, well, let me investigate this. And I clicked on it. It was one of those aggregate sites, that just is showing you all these different things for super cheap. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. This is not this is not the real thing.
I did not expect that. I can't believe you saw an advertisement. I would have assumed that like a friend came to you and was like, "Hey, I saw this on a site," but no, you saw an advertisement for a fake copy of your own deck.
Yeah, it's just YouTube's like, you might be interested in this. I'm like, well, thanks. I guess I am, but not for the reason you think. And so I had to I think I screenshot it and sent it to the publisher because it is hard to uh, really get to the source of where the decks are coming from, but where US companies are advertising them, that is a nice little loophole that is a good legal focus.
Wow. So you have your deck, right? And this is very well sized. I want to say it's about the size of like what you would expect to get like a book from. So it's really big. It comes with this nice magnetic slip box. You open it and we have a very nice guide. It's like a whole book.
Yep, color
It's
on
a
the
whole
inside.
book. Yes. It's about 117 pages. And then you have your cards. And you're the author, but also the artist. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
Okay. So we have, these really beautifully printed. They're sturdy. I always like to do the bend test to see how well it keeps it. They're really sturdy. And I have found with these illegally copied decks, you'll often get half the size. So it'll be half
Yep.
the size. It'll say and they'll copy completely the same packaging, or even if it says big book included or whatever, but then there often won't be a book. It'll be just the cards, and they're usually the flimsiest cards. So you have your supporters who think they're buying this really beautiful packaged and presented deck, but then they're getting something that is like, uh, you know, that's like
Inferior
not good
product.
quality. Yeah. Like I wanted to say like thrifts, like, dollar store quality, but I'm like, I don't think that's probably
Some
correct.
things are really nice from the dollar store. You never
Yes. But yeah.
know.
So so we just went through what your deck looks like. Have you seen in person an illegal copy of your own deck?
I haven't seen in person of my deck. I've seen photos and people have sent me images. There's also a video of somebody online who's doing um, a flip through,
Mm.
who is claiming that's an authentic deck. We can talk more about that. But I was like, that looks wrong because the color's wrong, the box is wrong. But I have seen plenty of fellow artists and authors' decks in the wild at various events where people are selling them. I have walked into shops and then pretty much walked right out of shops that have had a selection of counterfeit decks.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I would not have expected that from within the witch community. That's not cool.
No, no. And they're like,
Oh,
well, you could say maybe there's a small percentage that are going, oh, this was such a good deal. Like, you know what your official outlets are for buying decks and books. You know where these things from. If it's really, really cheap, yeah, you probably know you're not getting the real deal and you're trying to pass it off to your customers. And it's like, what else are you cutting corners for? Like, I know the economy's rough, but you just screwing everybody over.
yeah. And I'm also like within publishing, we all know what those numbers look like. We know what it costs to purchase something from a publisher or from an author. We know what all of that looks like. So for shops, which honestly that shocks me, for shops to, because it often feels like authors and shops and like, I mean, everyone, publishers are all like in it together,
Mhm.
just trying to do the best for everyone. So to feel like one of those outlets is trying to hurt the other people is surprising to me, I have to say.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It really feels like, oh, this is not about crafting community. This is not about education. There's no support here. And well, it's also, I believe, I don't know the levels of legality, but I've heard it's a federal offense to be selling counterfeit products,
Wow.
at least in the United States. So even if you're getting them from overseas, which is where they're coming from, uh, yeah, if someone calls the right authority. I mean, I don't want to do that to people, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm
No,
like,
yeah. You're like, but if it happens.
it's going to have to happen at some point. So, uh, yeah, it's
So we've touched on this a little bit, but how does this affect authors and artists?
oh, on so many different levels. It's exhausting because you put so much work, like to create a deck like that. And the whole process from creating the artwork and writing the words, or even if it's two people doing that together, it's at least a year, if not 2 years, from like the point the contract is signed to then, or however that project works. It's a long time. It's a big part of your life, and then to see, it just show up for a fraction of the price, not even the quality of what you've put out there, and then there are people who are obviously horrified and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know this. And then there are people who are like, so what's the big deal? And I think that's where I was like, and like this is a spiritual tool. Like even if you don't look at tarot or oracle cards as beyond anything but pretty art or investigation of the psyche, right? There's still a relationship that happens that you're putting your trust or you're putting your unconscious or subconscious self into relationship with these things, and you just like, yeah, it's fine that I'm just screwing over everybody else in the process. It's fine.
Wow. Especially like often again, because witches, writers and artists and creators, this is not an avenue to get rich, you know? So supporting each other is very, I mean, I don't have to tell you this, but supporting each other is very important.
Yeah.
And one of the things is you may have fan, right? Or a reader or a follower who is like, "Oh gosh, I love this. It looks so good." Oh, maybe it's like 29.99 at Barnes and Noble, but Amazon has it for 22 and it comes right to my door. So I'm just going to order that, and they're ordering it completely legit. They think they're ordering it from you, and they can still end up with an illegal deck. And how this happens is somebody is buying them illegally and then posting them on Amazon under the legitimate ISBN or the legitimate number. So you can have people who are want to support you, who are buying it fully correctly
Yes.
in their eyes. So and they could still end up with an inferior product, paying way more than they should have for a very inferior product, unintentionally hurting the artist and author. So, do you have any tips for helping your readers or followers avoid illegal decks?
That's a great thing, yeah, 'cause especially on Amazon, like if you look through the reviews, there's a couple of reviews on for the Anatomy of a Witch Oracle that said it doesn't come with a guidebook, and like that's impossible for the original. You see the package, like there's no way you can remove the guidebook from it. It's how it is. So like if you do buy through Amazon and it comes, so it's going to come not in a magnetic box, it's going to come in a slip box. Right, so the front and the back do look exactly the same, but they're just printed and it's going to be much thinner. The cards are going to be smaller, they're going to be cropped closer, there's no going to be booklet, there's probably going to be a QR code. They tend to sneak a QR code on there, usually on the flap, right, to be like, for your booklet just click this, and it goes nowhere. But if you receive one of those, immediately report it to Amazon. Don't leave a review because that doesn't help the product itself. It doesn't help the author or the publisher, because it's not a reflection of the actual product, right? It's a legal issue that needs to be reported. So that seller needs to be reported, and you need to get that going on with Amazon. So that's the most important thing, is like, first, don't just be like, it's not the right thing, I'm going to go leave it 1 star. Like, no, don't do that. And double check. So looking at the things, if you are ordering it from online, look for trusted sellers, right? Look for your metaphysical shops that you do know and trust. You can buy it directly from the publisher. You can buy it directly from the artist, like my website, author's website. If you are shopping in person, again, look at the thing. If it's kind of crappily shrink wrapped, it tends to be another sign. Like yours came with a nice plastic, right? It's one where you can just slice with your fingernail and remove it. It's not going to have that static, the things that my cats like to lick, that kind of thing. And see what people are offering around that too, when you like, is this quality thing, or is this sort of a one-off? To do a little bit of research. And you can even check the specs, like on the website on Amazon, it should say what the size is supposed to be, and if it deviates from that, it's another big tale.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, especially the part where you were talking about buying it from trustworthy sellers. Unfortunately, sometimes when we buy things off of marketplaces
Mhm.
like Amazon, we think we're getting it from Amazon or the publisher, but that's not always the case. So exactly what you said, like buying it from the publisher, a trustworthy bookstore like Barnes and Noble, your local shop, or from the from the artist or author themselves. I'm pretty sure you offer like a signed copy when they buy it straight from you too, so you get
Yes.
a little extra,
And it doesn't
oomph
cost
there.
anymore. I'm like one of those are like, I'm not going to charge you for my signature, but I will happily write you a little note and put your name on there if you want, or I could just sign it if you're like, I don't know if I want to ever read from this deck again after I get it. Like I could just sign it. Yeah, it'll be nice. There you go. Like there are so many options. I totally understand the idea of something be convenient. And that's the thing, right? To be able to just kind of click online and have it come to you. Or, if you have a wish list, right? And you have some well-meaning relative who's like, wow, this is what they want, and it's only $4.99.
What are some other ways your readers can support you? So, like, what are some other ways that people within the witch community can support creators like yourself?
Well, if you do love a book, a product, a deck, you know, leaving reviews on appropriate platforms, and whether that's Amazon, Goodreads, book, you know, there's a bunch of new ones that are coming out, so you can move away from the Goodreads and Amazon platform. But sharing that you love something, I think that's one of the best things out there. And like, it doesn't cost anything to like, I love this book, you should read it too. I love playing with this deck, you know, make a little, if you make a video, if you're interested in that, but just even telling your friends and sharing it, that's the best thing, because when we trust our friends, hopefully, right? And like, oh, we often have similar things and similar tastes. You're going to like this too. To me, that's the best kind of advertising there is. It's like, here it is from a trusted source. I enjoy this. You're going to enjoy this too.
So, what did I learn from this? I will say the biggest shocker I learned is that there are shops contributing to this. Typically, shops and businesses understand how small the margins are for this sort of product for everybody. And it really shocks me that they would undercut their own community to make a few dollars more a day, assuming they're selling enough of these illegal decks to make any sort of actual profit. And I think that's really disheartening. And it really tells me that even when you go into local shops, just be a little discerning over what you're buying. Has my initial opinion changed? I didn't really have an opinion to begin with. I really just wanted to explore this topic, and I definitely learned a lot and a lot more than I expected. I definitely didn't know it was as pervasive as it seems to be. And would I do this again? Well, one, I wouldn't buy a deck that I think there's a high likelihood of being scammed, but that I need to possibly make sure I am buying from more legitimate sources, such as Barnes and Noble, who isn't allowing kind of third-party sellers onto their platform, as well as directly from the artist and author. Sometimes buying directly from the artist and author is more helpful to them. Sometimes it's not. I mean, I have a book. It doesn't help me for you to buy it from me versus a distributor, but for some, it really, really does help. So if you have the option to buy it from an author or artist, I highly recommend you do that. Your second best would be a seller that is more notable, like Barnes and Noble, or that doesn't allow third-party sellers onto their platform, such as Amazon or eBay. So I'm going to have links to both of these decks in my episode description. I make absolutely no money if you buy it. It's not affiliated. I get no cuts. Okay. So it's just there for if you enjoy them and would like to check them out. I do link directly to Laura's website. And then for the Buffy, I link directly to Barnes and Noble. So until next time, ghoul friends, keep your candles lit and your planchette at the ready because the spirits are waiting.